Order, order. We start with questions to the Minister for the Cabinet Office. Kate Osmore.
Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Secretary. Minute.
Mr Speaker, with permission, I will answer questions 1 and 2 together. The infected blood scandal is the worst medical scandal in the history of our NHS, and the infected blood compensation scheme was set to provide some small measure of justice to victims and their families. We've set aside £11.8 billion for victims, and since the scheme became law on 31st of March, the Infected Blood Compensation Authority now has the powers it needs to press ahead and make payments to those eligible for compensation. Compensation payments began last December. 69 people have accepted their offers, totalling over £71 million.
It is 12, not to worry. Kate Osmore.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Minister for his response. My constituent, who is 77 years old, is a victim of the infected blood scandal. He's worried that haemophilia patients infected with hepatitis are being sidelined by the compensation scheme. He tells me that he was told that those on the special category mechanism with hepatitis C would be upgraded to the same level as those with cirrhosis, but this position has now been reversed. Will the Minister look into his concerns about disparities for haemophiliacs infected by hepatitis?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that question. I will certainly write to her on that issue of the special category mechanism, but just to reassure her that the government's objective is for all victims of the infected blood scandal to be able to achieve the compensation they deserve.
Well, it's Macdonald.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his response. My constituent, Mr Alan Kirkham, has been badly affected by the infected blood scandal. He was infected with hepatitis C from a blood transfusion in 1983. I met Alan recently. He's been campaigning for years for justice. Would the Minister welcome and pay tribute to the work of campaigners like Alan, and can he provide assurances that we are working at pace to deliver compensation and consider fast-tracking older and more vulnerable people?
I will certainly pay tribute to Alan and the work of all the campaigners over decades. I'm restless for progress and will support the Infected Blood Compensation Authority to deliver compensation as quickly as possible. On the fast-tracking for specific claimants, last week, IBCA set out details of how they are prioritising claims for infected people nearing the end of their lives.
John Law.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What direct discussions has the Minister had with people in Scotland impacted by the infected blood scandal about the slow pace of compensation payments?
I have, in the course of the work that I have done, obviously spoken not only to groups in Scotland, but I do also engage with the Scottish Government Health Minister on this matter as well. On the issue of the pace of the payments, IBCA has taken a test and learn approach, which allows them to deal with a sample of the cases that then allows them subsequently to scale up. IBCA is operationally independent, but of course I stand ready to provide all the support that I can to speed up the payments.
Sorry, Dyke.
Mr Speaker. My constituent Hazel from Street was infected with hepatitis C in the 1970s following receiving blood products after the birth of her child. She suffered years of ill health and related problems and is still waiting for the infected blood compensation scheme. Her case is truly, truly heartbreaking. So what assurances can the Minister provide to people like Hazel that she will soon be supported?
So I first of all express my sympathy to Hazel. I'm sure the whole House's sympathy in respect of what she has been through. The assurance I give is that this government will act at pace. That's what we did in terms of putting the first set of regulations in place by the 24th of August last year, by putting the second set of regulations in by the 31st of March this year. And I continue to stand ready to help and support IBCA, which is operationally independent, but nonetheless to support in any way that I can to speed up the payments.
Sarah Coombes.
Number 2, Mr Speaker.
Secretary.
With your permission, Mr Speaker, I would like to answer questions 2, 10, 13, 18 and 20 together. This government believes in the power of good public services to provide security and opportunity, but we're also clear that the way the state works has to change. That is why we're reforming the planning system to get more houses built. That's why we've introduced free breakfast clubs to give children the best start of the day, why we've launched the AI Action Plan to drive the adoption of new tech in public services, and why a combination of investment and reform has helped us cut NHS waiting lists now for months in a row.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labour was elected to get the NHS back on its feet, and that is exactly what we've been doing. And in my Sandwell and West Birmingham NHS Trust, the waiting list has fallen 10% since the election, which means patients are finally getting the treatment they need. One of the key things that we've been doing is looking at things like ambient AI to automate doctors' notes and make sure that we've got modern technology in the NHS. Can the Minister set out what we are doing to ensure the NHS adopts all technology and reform to make sure that patients are getting seen as quickly as possible?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. There is huge potential to increase NHS productivity through the adoption of new technology and AI. And as I said, it's a combination of investment and reform which has helped us meet our election pledge to deliver 2 million extra NHS appointments in England in the first year, 7 months early. But we want to go further. We want to adopt the technology that my honourable friend referred to get maximum productivity and better outcome for patients.
Jess.
I thank the Minister for his response. I've been contacted by a constituent who is concerned for his poorly elderly father who requires cryotherapy. This used to be offered at his local GP, avoiding a difficult trip to our local hospital, which has a deleterious impact on my constituent's already poor health. Given the government's focus on moving more health services into the community and people's homes as part of our public service reform agenda, would my right honourable friend agree that cryotherapy services should be considered as part of this welcome shift?
Mr. Speaker, the Health Secretary has talked about 3 big shifts, one of them being from hospital to the community that are part of the 10-year NHS plan. And that shift from hospitals to community will require more services to be available locally. We've agreed a new GP contract which will see a large boost to general practitioner funding, alongside reforms to improve digital access. If we're going to make this shift, it's important that services are available in the local community.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's laudable mission-led approach has seen NHS waiting lists fall 5 months in a row. Our NHS, like many public services, has been plagued by over-specified guidance and unnecessary targets for so many years now. And so will the Cabinet Office assure the House that this mission-led approach will mean focus on core non-negotiables to deliver for the British people?
Well, the missions, Mr. Speaker, set out the long-term targets for the government. And the plan for change sets out the key targets for the next few years. I do believe that targets can have a key role in driving behaviour and that the focus on getting waiting lists down and waiting times down set out in our plan for change can make a real difference over the coming few years.
Oliver Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Secretary of State for that answer. I know from my time as a councillor outside this place that under the last government, policy was made here with very little thought on how it could hit frontline services more locally. But examples like test and trace and the pandemic show that local services can deliver national priorities effectively. What can he do to make sure that civil servants down here work better with frontline workers up there to make sure that this government's priorities are being delivered?
Well, the honourable member makes a very good point. I think it's really important that we change the way that policy is made, that we listen more to the front line, and that we work with the test and learn approach that was referred to by my right honourable friend in the previous question, and that can help drive better outcomes for the public.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's clear to me that under the last government, our state failed the public. We had an agenda not rooted in the lives of everyday people, which meant that despite a record number of civil servants in a generation, outcomes for my constituents in Wirral West and across the country were worse. So could he please set out how a smaller, more modern and more focused state could once again deliver world-class public services?
Well, Mr. Speaker, over recent years the public has seen the state get bigger. They've seen taxes go up, but they haven't always felt that they're getting the right outcome for those changes. And so to deliver our plan for change, we do need to reform the state to make it more efficient and more effective. We've started to deliver these reforms, stronger performance management, accelerating AI adoption, focus on the front line, reforming rules around recruitment and secondments. These plans will help empower our excellent civil services to work better to reduce bureaucracy and to focus on what really matters, which is better outcomes for the public.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Can I commend the ministerial team for both the Innovation Fund, but more importantly, the test and learn culture referred to, which embraces a willingness to take risks and to iterate. Does the Minister agree with me that in order for this to be truly successful and indeed transform our public services, that we must also in parallel reform our governance and approval processes so that they do not inadvertently stifle this welcome method of innovation?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Member obviously has hugely important experience in this regard, and he will know from that experience that the traditional system can be risk averse and it can seek to resolve too much before launching a policy and try to cover every base. The test and learn approach is different by intention. It intends to start small and to build from there. And what's absolutely certain is that whether it's his party in power or my party in power, there is a duty on any government today to pursue reform of the state to improve outcomes for the public. So in that regard, I agree with him.
Sir Gavin Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A number of months ago, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster announced the plan for change and the pillars, the missions and various other things that come with it. When is he going to update the House as to how that's going and how they're meeting those targets?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have good news for him. One of the key... this is parliamentary accountability in action. One of the key targets in the plan for change was, of course, to get waiting lists and waiting times down. And I'm pleased to report to him that they have fallen for 5 months in a row, that we've met our first step on 2 million extra appointments early, and I look forward to more progress in the future.
Will Forster.
Mr. Speaker, with 2,100 jobs set to go at the Cabinet Office by 2028, please can the Minister confirm what impact these cuts will have on his department and what responsibilities might be transferred out of it?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Office has tripled in size in the past decade or so. And I think it's right, after a growth like that we look at productivity and we look at how to get the best outcomes for the public. So we have introduced a mutually agreed exit scheme. Some of the headcount reduction will be by transferring functions to other places, but I believe that the Cabinet Office can absorb a headcount reduction after, as I said, tripling in size over the past decade or so.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister outline government plans to reform the funding of fire authorities? This is especially important in Somerset, where changes to employers' national insurance contributions, the ending of the rural support grant, the removal of the services grant and the reduction of the pension grant will cost Devon and Somerset Fire Authority nearly £2 million a year at a time of rising costs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to interrupt the collegiate mood that we've had this morning by pointing out the decisions that we had to take after the inheritance that we had. I can't speak for every local authority settlement around the country, but I do believe that the local authority settlements on the whole announced after the budget were better than for many years. They won't make up for the past 14 years, but they have been better settlements than many local authorities have seen for some time.
Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for his answers to those questions. Minister, the reform of public services is something that's really important. I welcome what the Minister has put forward in his ideas. Obviously, I know the Minister has a deep interest in Northern Ireland, and I would ask perhaps, is it possible in his journeys to Northern Ireland, and he goes regularly, I understand, would he discuss the reform of public services with the Northern Ireland Assembly and the relevant Minister to ensure that the benefits that come from what the Minister is putting forward today, we can have the same in Northern Ireland, and thereby improve the services and save money at the same time? Thank you.
Well, I thank the honourable member for his question. I think it's really important that we have a good dialogue between all the devolved governments and the UK government. I believe that we do have that good dialogue in place at the moment. There's always different political parties represented around the table, and people will come at things from a particular angle. But when it comes to this kind of agenda, How do you get the best value for money for people? How do you get waiting lists down? How do you make sure that the taxes that people pay get the best possible public sector productivity? I think there's a common agenda there, and I've seen no reason why we can't keep working productively together on that.
Through the members.
Question 3, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
With permission, Mr Speaker, I'd like to answer question 3 and 16 together. The Government is taking a range of measures to strengthen our emergency preparedness. The Government holds regular cross-government planning exercises for a range of scenarios. Later this year, we'll be undertaking a pandemic response exercise. We'll also be undertaking a national test of our emergency alert system. And next week, my friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, will be opening the new UK Resilience Academy, which will train over 4,000 people a year. I thank the Minister for her response, and I particularly welcome the proposed test on the emergency alert system. Certainly the demise of landlines and the switch off of PSTN means that residents, particularly in areas that suffer prolonged power outages, like parts of my Carlisle constituency, now rely on their mobile phones more than ever in emergency events. Will the Minister share my desire to see Ofcom expedite their work on the radio access network resilience project so that we can move towards a position where the networks put in place emergency generators to switch those masts back on in the event of a prolonged power outage? I'd like to thank my honourable friend for her question. This is an issue that I do recognise, and I would like to reassure the honourable member that my colleagues currently in Department for Science and Innovation and Technology are working very closely with telecoms companies and Ofcom, as she's mentioned, to ensure consumers are protected throughout the public switch telephone network migration. And this will include provisions that she has mentioned to protect customer services, access to emergency services during power outages.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Local resilience forums such as Northumbria and Durham and Darlington, covering my constituency, play a very important part in identifying potential risks and supporting our local communities. So can the Minister tell the House how the Government is working with these local forums and how it will ensure that their insights feed into the Government's planning and preparation for risks such as pandemics?
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for that important question. The Government recognises the vital importance of local resilience forums, particularly the role they play in resilience in places and communities. And I hope she feels reassured that I've met with all local resilience forums across England to discuss these concerns. And I've also met with businesses to talk about the importance of local resilience. So we will continue to work closely with the local tier, including the one within her local area, which is Northumbria LRF, to plan and prepare for a broad range of risks, including pandemics.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Whilst I was Police Commissioner, I saw many of the things that have been referred to by honourable members so far as critically important to that emergency resilience planning across the public sector and working with the private sector, but also key to making sure that that is all targeted in the right ways, making sure that all the different agencies, public bodies and companies have a shared understanding of the risks that we face as a country and what the latest updates are on those. So can the Minister explain to the House when the Government will next be updating the National Risk Register and what plans ministers have for the frequency those updates will be published going forward?
I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question and also to thank you for the work in this space, because I know he's done a lot of work in this. We are constantly looking at the risk register and updating it. A lot of work has been done alongside that. But alongside that, we are also carrying out a resilience review. As the honourable member would know, that we also need to be making sure, as you rightly pointed out, that we should be working across all wide ranges of sector to make sure the wider society plays a greater role in this. And part of the work that I've been doing has been meeting with businesses, voluntary organisations, vulnerable groups, to make sure that those issues are reflected. So we're also making sure that we'll be sharing that in due course with the House in terms of the lessons that we've learned. And I've also engaged with parliamentarians on this issue as well.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In the last few weeks, Dorset has been ravaged by wildfires, especially in my very close area in Upton and Camford Heath, with more than 130 acres gone. I was blown away by the work of the fire crews from Dorset, Wiltshire, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. And I would ask of the Minister to thank their combined work of these fire services, but also acknowledge that there needs to be a review of funding for emergency services to ensure they are consistently able to protect us in the face of climate change. And I would like to ask for that assurance.
I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for raising such an important matter as well. I also want to put on record my thanks to the emergency services, who have really been doing a lot of work on the ground, particularly through local resilience forums and also through the work that she's done as a local MP. As part of the resilience review, we are looking into the issues that she has raised, and we are also working collaboratively across departments to make sure that the climate change matters that she's raised is something that is also something that is looked into as well, because it isn't just something that we should be looking at alone as a Cabinet Office. It should be something done across all departments.
Sir Secretary Alex Bell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to turn to the sorry state of Labour-run Birmingham, where rats the size of dachshunds are terrifying the local residents. Indeed, in the Daily Telegraph this morning, we read that Birmingham City Council has warned of a possible surge of rat-borne diseases to which the elderly, disabled people and babies are particularly susceptible. The government has had emergency powers throughout this crisis, not least the Civil Contingencies Act. Will the Minister set out for the House why it has declined to use them?
I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his question. I'm sure he would like to join me in praising the Deputy Prime Minister and her team for her hard work on this. In terms of getting this cleared, a lot of the rubbish has been cleared, and I also want to take the opportunity to thank all the staff in Birmingham and across the government departments that have played a key role in responding really quickly and tirelessly in dealing with this matter.
Yes. Alex Barker.
I'm afraid I'm not going to congratulate the Deputy Prime Minister in much the same way that the people of Birmingham are not thanking her either. I very much hope that the Deputy Prime Minister will take the Prime Minister and maybe the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster to Birmingham to see the fact that there is still very much rubbish that is not cleared. And I hope that the Labour Party will perhaps undertake not to take any donations from Unite the Union whilst this crisis is ongoing. Look, the government has commissioners in Birmingham at the moment. But we know from parliamentary questions that the commissioners are not involved in the negotiations to end this ongoing problem with the local union. The government has powers to do that. Why is it not using those powers? When will it bring an end to these strikes and set people of Birmingham free?
I have to thank the Honourable Member for his question. I am slightly disappointed in the approach that he has taken. I think it's important that we work collaboratively together, and as you rightly pointed out, Birmingham is the focus right here, and let's move the politics out of it. It's important that this dispute is resolved as swiftly as possible, and this is what the Deputy Prime Minister and her team are doing at the moment.
Steph Ackwood.
Question number 4, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government commissioned a comprehensive State of Digital Government review when we came into power that demonstrates just how far we have to go. It set out a picture of fragmentation, silos and failure to maximise the opportunity of data to personalise and target services. The average UK adult citizen spends a week and a half dealing with government bureaucracy every year. The government has set out a plan to change this. We're taking wide-ranging action, from creating the National Data Library to increasing the number of services that use gov.uk one login.
Steph Ackwood.
Mr. Speaker, and I'm glad that she mentioned the government's State of Digital Government review and its fairly excoriating conclusions. It's clear the public sector is not using data well enough. It detailed changes and barriers and reluctance to get the best out of data available to government departments. Some departments can't even get their own arm's-length bodies to share data with them, and if we use data better, then we can deliver government better. So would the Minister meet with me to discuss further how the Cabinet Office can lead on acting on the lessons of the review and to ensure that the citizen experience is put at the heart of the changes it makes?
Mr. Speaker, I'd be delighted to meet with the honourable member. This is something I'm really passionate about in local government. I saw how difficult it was for frontline staff who weren't able to get data from different services. But I think most importantly for citizens who were having to tell their story and share data with multiple different services, and the confusion that causes is something we are working very closely on with a new digital centre for government. We've got an action plan to address it, but always welcome to hear new ideas, because this could be really transformative for citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Too often when I am trying to get to the bottom of problems for my constituents in Ribble Valley, I get responses to written questions that say that we just don't have the data available. So while I absolutely applaud this government putting data at the heart of the government's plans, I do worry that we could get too carried away with looking at AI solutions before we get to dealing with solutions of actually collecting data in the first place. So could the Minister particularly reassure me on how we're working with local government to make sure that we are collecting all the data sources possible and have them all in one place to start with before we kind of get to how we make that more efficient? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for I'd like to thank the honourable member so much for their question, and also thank you always for your leadership of the House. I think the two issues are completely linked. To use the opportunities of AI that are enormous to personalise services, to target prevention, we need to have a clear data picture. We need to be able to bring data together across different levels of government. There is a huge amount of data in government, but some of it's stuck in legacy systems. It's not shared properly, and this is just the absolute bedrock of the opportunity around AI. So it's something we're very committed to, and especially working with local government.
Shall the Minister Richard Holden?
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker, and I hope to continue the positive cross-party approach of this question. I particularly like the Minister's commitment to a clear data picture. Now, the Sullivan Review into Government Data was published in March this year, and Professor Sullivan made 59 recommendations to ensure that across government accuracy and consistency are maintained. Now, I don't expect the Government Minister to have a full formal response to that review today. However, can the Minister just give me the reassurance that the Government is going to issue a full formal response to that review and its recommendations to provide that clear data across government within, say, a year of the publication of the report?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and appreciate the collegiate style of discussion. There is a huge amount to do here, and when we came into power, we set out, as I said, a review of the picture that showed just how hard it is for citizens to negotiate it. Moving home, you have to announce to 10 different organisations using different public services, sometimes 40 different services. So we need to change. We haven't waited for that review. We've already set out our own plans, but of course we will respond to the external reviews that have come forward.
Peter Lapp.
Number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me thank the thousands of diligent and hard-working civil servants who are dedicated to making people's lives better. We want to get the best for civil servants and out of civil servants, so we're reforming the structure and the focus so that it's better placed to fulfil that purpose. And that includes a number of important steps in recent weeks: robust performance management, better use of digital tools, faster recruitment, cuts to some wasteful spending, and a review of the ALB landscape, including the changes announced on NHS England to return both power and responsibility to elected representatives.
Peter Lamb.
Well, I'd like to thank the Minister for his response, and I would be perfectly happy to accept the diligence of the civil service. Regardless, every 2 years, a third of the civil service change their department, and countless more change with unrelated policy roles within each department. Under the last government, policy expertise has been completely hollowed out from the civil service. Could the Minister set out how we intend to resolve this, to bring policy expertise back into the civil service, and ensure that we have government teams capable of delivering for Britain?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's probably true to say that it's been a long-held frustration, perhaps, of some ministers about turnaround in the pattern of career progression when people move on after a few years, just as they're becoming an absolute expert in the area in which they've been working in. But our ambition is not just to have policy expertise, but to change the way that policy is put together in the first place. That's why this test and learn approach that we discussed earlier in the session is so important, because frankly the old way of having a group of experts writing a white paper, throwing it over a wall and hoping it will work first time just doesn't work in today's age. And what we've really got to avoid is a two-speed world with massive innovation in the private sphere and the public sphere working in the same old ways. We've got to avoid that in the interest of the public.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The right honourable gentleman talks a good game about scrapping quangos, and I support the review that he's announced to reduce the size of the bureaucratic state. So why, despite the rhetoric, is the government at the same time creating dozens of new quangos?
Mr. Speaker, this is another debate that's gone on for many years, and it relates to the question of headcount, because governments can magically reduce headcount and create a quango somewhere, and maybe the headcount hasn't changed at all. What I think is informing the drive this time is to deal with the fiction that an arm's-length body can somehow absolve ministers of responsibility. It doesn't work like that in the real world, and sometimes there is a good case for having an arm's-length body, but in the end we know that accountability will be with ministers, and that's what's informing how we look at these things at the moment.
Sarah Oldham, the Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've listened with a great deal of interest to what the Secretary of State's had to say about the government's plans to make Whitehall more efficient and to make significant reforms to how services are delivered. And we very much welcome the intention behind that statement on these benches. However, announcements have been made in the media about the intention to cut 2,100 jobs in the Cabinet Office and reduce the department's workforce by a third. Can I ask the Secretary of State why it is that we haven't had a statement in this House about those job cuts specifically, and when members of Parliament will get an opportunity to scrutinise exactly what that means for their constituents and their expectations about how services are going to be delivered?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Lady for her question. Look, I work very closely with the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Treasury on this, and the truth is that we have had the civil service grow by over 100,000 in terms of headcount during the years of the party opposite being in power. We believe that some of that can be explained by, for example, the repatriation of Brexit powers after Brexit, but some of it we can look at in terms of efficiencies, and that's what we're doing. And by reducing the government's overhead, we can actually devote the resources to where they're really needed in frontline public services. And after such a growth presided over by the party opposite over the past decade, we believe that can be done.
Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 6, please.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with permission, I'll answer questions 6, 9, 15 and 17 together. My right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, spoke a few moments ago at the dispatch box of a good dialogue. We are committed to working with the devolved governments across the UK. There is frequent proactive engagement between ministers and their devolved counterparts to achieve this. For example, we've worked with the Scottish Government on the Joint Investment Plan for Grangemouth, with the Welsh Government through the Tata Steel Port Talbot Transition Board, and alongside the Northern Ireland Executive on the city deals.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister will be aware of last week's historic UK Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman being based on biological sex. This ruling provides important legal clarity, and it is critical now that UK and Scottish governments work in a coordinated manner to ensure the practical impacts are understood. Can he outline how he plans to ensure this coordinated approach delivers for women in Scotland and across the United Kingdom? And does he agree with me that this ruling must be a lesson for the SNP government that they must stop wasting Scottish taxpayers' money on flawed legislation and court cases?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The ruling upholds the protection of single-sex spaces based on biological sex and brings welcome clarity and confidence for women and indeed for service providers. The Equality and Human Rights Commission, as Britain's equality regulator, has already committed to supporting service providers with updated guidance. And on the specific point raised by my honourable friend, we will meet Scottish counterparts to discuss the implications of this significant judgment.
Katrina Murray.
I thank the Minister for his answer
to the earlier question. Events like Tartan Day provide a vital opportunity for companies such as RSE and Cumbernauld to promote their products on the international markets. They have repeatedly told me they want to be a part of Brand Scotland. Can the Minister outline how he will work with the Scotland Office and the Scottish Government to ensure that Tartan Day is an even bigger success next year in order to secure investment in the Scottish economy and create Scottish jobs?
Thank you. Mr Speaker, let me pay tribute first to RSE and the brilliant work that they're doing on water tech. Earlier this month, I had the pleasure indeed of representing Scotland in the United States, along with my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Scotland, at Tartan Week. We met with a range of businesses and investors to bang the drum for Scotland as a great place to invest and to work. It was frankly a powerful opportunity to show Scotland has two governments committed to its prosperity and well-being. As the UK Government committed to growth, we're more interested in new markets than old arguments, and my friend, the Scottish Secretary, actively reached out to the First Minister, seeking to cooperate by coordinating our presence.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. I welcome the steps the Government is taking to strengthen cooperation with the Scottish Government, and also the steps our Government is taking to cut waste and inefficiency and ensure ministers take responsibility for public services. This is an important area for potential cooperation and dialogue, because in Scotland we currently have more quangos than there are MSPs in Holyrood, wasting millions of pounds a year. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that the SNP Scottish Government should stop hiding behind these quangos, end the culture of waste, and take responsibility for plummeting standards in Scottish public services?
Hear, hear.
Friend for the question, and I would want to echo the sentiments of my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. The powerful point he made about the ultimate ministerial responsibility resting rightly and reasonably with elected representatives applies north of the Tweed as surely as south of the Tweed. I only wish, frankly, the Scottish Government would use the powers it has to do the same and actively cut waste and bureaucracy. Scotland deserves better than what we're witnessing just now.
Lynn Stewart.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Would the Minister agree with me that this Labour Government's plan for change has helped deliver 1,500 more GPs to help stop the 8 AM rush, and the Scottish Government should work with the Secretary of State for Health to look at how the SNP-run health service in Scotland could learn from this?
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. As the UK Government, we've delivered over 2 million extra NHS appointments 7 months early, as the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster was setting out just a few moments ago. Yet we all know that despite the brilliance of NHS staff, the NHS in Scotland is frankly still on its knees. And I would at this dispatch box today urge our colleagues in the Scottish Government to work with us and actually learn some lessons from our team in the Department of Health, who are already driving change across England.
Brendan O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Of course, if they were serious about cooperating with the devolved government, then tomorrow's debate on devolving immigration policy to Scotland, which will be brought by my SNP colleague, the member for Arbroath and Broughty Ferry, would not be necessary. The Minister will recall that in the run-up to the general election, Labour's deputy leader in Scotland, Jackie Baillie, said he would be open to talks on this issue. And of course it would be unthinkable that she would have said such a thing just to gain short-term electoral advantage. So, having waited a year, could the Minister tell us when does he expect those talks to open?
Mr Speaker, in the spirit of collegiality that's been the hallmark of this question session so far, let me respectfully suggest there's a fundamental philosophical difference between our two parties. The party opposite wants to end the United Kingdom, and we believe in devolution, which is ultimately a two-parliament, two-government solution. There are two governments that represent the best interests of the United Kingdom, and in that sense I appreciate that there is a constant demand and a constant set of grievances from the party opposite about why devolution isn't working. It's about time we had a government in Scotland committed to making devolution work.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Further to the question from the honourable member from Airdrie and Shorts, given last week's UK Supreme Court ruling, which I welcome as a return to common sense and biological reality, what steps is the Minister taking to ensure the government messaging reflects this clarity and that it is implemented consistently both across the devolved regions and here in Westminster?
Well done. Well, Mr Speaker, I can assure the Honourable Lady that the Equality and Human Rights Commission, which has a remit across the nations and regions of the United Kingdom has already committed to supporting service providers with updated guidance. And I can assure the Honourable Lady, as surely as I confirmed the position that we're talking to colleagues in Scotland, we'll also be talking to colleagues in Wales and indeed in Northern Ireland.
Ben Coleman.
Question 7, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the House's continuing passion for procurement, and the honourable member has helped lead the way in Hammersmith and Fulham Council on this area. I've seen how much energy there is in local government to use procurement to deliver jobs and growth. The government is working on plans to allow local authorities to reserve contracts for local employers. Public procurement can be a key tool in driving growth and supporting businesses across the economy. Our new National Procurement Policy Statement looks to maximise spend with small businesses and asks contracting authorities to work collaboratively on local and regional growth plans.
Ben Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I thank the Minister both for her reply just now and for the excellent work she's done putting together this procurement strategy. This is a big passion of mine for many years, that we don't use procurement just to talk about getting extra social value, but we get extra economic value, which helps local firms and local growth. And that's what this statement does, and I'm hugely welcome it. May I ask the Minister whether she now intends to issue guidance to local authorities to ensure that they know how best they can achieve economic value? For example, they can proactively tell small firms what contracts are coming up. They can train small firms in how to tender, which is very difficult for them. They can encourage them to break procurements into lots, so small firms have a better chance of bidding, and not require unreasonable years of accounts to be shown before they're permitted to bid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Growth is the #1 mission of this government, and we've learned from local authorities like Hammersmith and Fulham, which build economic value into procurement. The Procurement Act makes new tools available, but the critical thing is how they're used to deliver innovation and growth. The government will be consulting on new plans to set targets for SME use for the wider public sector. And we've also delivered extensive training and developed new communities of practice to help make the most of this huge opportunity. So much of it is about culture and the use of these tools, as the Honourable Member has set out. And we will be working with local authorities around the country to deliver the enormous opportunity. My apologies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My North Shropshire constituency is a food production powerhouse, and I welcome any steps by the government to encourage local authorities to procure British produced food. But all local authorities are under extreme pressure to procure at very low cost. And I wonder what steps the Minister is taking to ensure, firstly, that the Groceries Code adjudicator is ensuring farmers are paid fairly for the food that they produce, and secondly, that the Department for Business and Trade is not about to undermine the food that they produce by entering a damaging trade deal with the US that would undermine those standards.
Mr. Speaker, I think that the guidance we've put into the National Procurement Policy Statement makes it clear that we want to deliver best value. So that is about value for money, which includes costs, but it also means ensuring we're supporting growth, supporting local suppliers, and it allows local authorities to make decisions on what will create jobs, what will create best opportunities for communities in procurement around food.
Dix.
Number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
This government was elected on an overwhelming mandate to deliver change. We inherited a country hit by an unprecedented cost of living crisis, with millions stuck on waiting lists and communities blighted by crime and antisocial behaviour. Mr. Speaker, we are already delivering the change we promised. A pay rise for 3 million workers thanks to our increase in the national minimum wage. NHS waiting lists down 6 months in a row, and funding for 13,000 neighbourhood police and community support officers. That was the change we promised, and that is the change we are delivering.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank the Minister for her answer, a really impressive catalogue of achievement in the early months of the government. More specifically, Mr. Speaker, in my constituency, can the Minister set out in a little bit more detail for my constituents and the House how big infrastructure projects, such as the Lower Thames Crossing, which I'm absolutely delighted that the government has now given consent to, and Dartford residents are delighted too, how big infrastructure projects can not only kickstart economic growth, but also provide jobs, skills and opportunities for residents in Dartford and across the Thames estuary.
My honourable friend is a great champion for the people of Dartford. Fixing Britain's creaking infrastructure is vital for our growth mission and plan for change. We're reforming our planning rules to cut through blockages to delivering infrastructure and helping meet our target of 150 planning decisions by the end of this Parliament. This government is committed to working with the private sector to deliver the Lower Thames Crossing, as well as creating jobs. This will reduce congestion and drive economic growth by improving connectivity between Kent and Essex.
Alison Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister is undoubtedly aware, part of the plan for change is kickstarting economic growth. Prior to the recess, the Secretary of State for Transport advised me, in relation to her statement about EV charging, that the Cabinet Office is responsible for EU reset negotiations. So can the Minister explain to me what assessment the Cabinet Office has made of the cost of the UK not being in the customs union with the EU?
I thank the honourable member for that question, and the Minister for the Cabinet Office has been negotiating with the EU in the national interest for this country. We've been clear there will be no return to customs union or single market, but that a reset with our relations with the EU is an important one.
So the Minister Macdonald.
Mr. Speaker, key to much of that plan is the government's target to make the UK the fastest growing economy in the G7. But with the IMF joining the OBR and the OECD in massively slashing projections for UK growth, and the IMF not expecting the UK to be the fastest growing economy in the G7 in any year between now and 2030, how confident is she that the government will meet that target?
Well, the predictions is that we're set to be the largest European growing economy in the G7. And since coming to government in July, we've prioritised growth. For example, Universal Studios building the biggest theme park in Europe in Bedfordshire, unblocking planning decisions, leading to things like that Lower Thames crossing. We are getting on with delivering the growth this country needs after 14 years of decline under the Conservatives.
The Minister might want. Sorry. Right, let us move to topicals. We start with Gurinder Singh.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary.
Since the last oral questions, Mr. Speaker, we've been working to create a more focused Cabinet Office that will drive the work of reform and help to deliver on our plan for change. We've taken decisive action, including cutting wasteful spending so that resources can be targeted on the front line. And I'm pleased to inform the House that I'll be shortly be opening the UK Resilience Academy, which will be an important resource in training public servants for a range of potential emergencies.
I'm sure the Minister will agree that the diversity of those in positions of responsibility across all areas of UK government, including public institutions, is key to maintaining the confidence of the British public that the government is working for all of us. And diversity is important across all areas of the various equality strands, but also in relation to the various geographical areas of the UK. Nations and regions. Can the Minister detail what work has been done to review the diversity of public appointments in the UK and to maintain and improve that diversity, particularly in view of the changes proposed to public bodies?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merit will always be the primary consideration in any appointment, but diversity is important and we are not giving up on it. We want to see a public service which looks like the country and which speaks with all the accents that make this country a great place. My honourable friend, the Minister, recently spoke at the Civil Service Social Mobility Conference to bring that message home, and it will reflect what we do on public appointments.
Shadow Secretary Alex Burke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the Paymaster General for an update on his negotiations with the European Union. He has not updated the House since the beginning of February, and there's been much speculation in the press. Perhaps he'd take this opportunity to rule out dropping the right to annual quota negotiations on fishing.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we will, of course, negotiate in the interests of our fishers and indeed understand and actually implement our rights in terms of marine protections. But, of course, I'm sure that the honourable gentleman would understand that I'm not going to give a running commentary on the negotiations, but what we are clear about is you'll negotiate in the national interest and in line with the manifesto we were elected on, elected 411 members of Parliament onto these benches.
Alice Buchan.
Well, I think the whole House will have heard him fail to rule that out, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps could he also rule out, it's good to hear the Prime Minister recently praising the Brexit freedom to regulate as we wish on AI. Can he assure the House that EU AI rules will not be applied to Northern Ireland?
Mr. Speaker, he again comes with his questions on the reset. What I want to just say, Mr. Speaker, is we've had an atmosphere of collegiality, and I want to join in that atmosphere because I want to agree with something that the Leader of the Opposition said when she said that the previous Conservative government left the EU without any plan for growth, and that is absolutely true. And I just say to the honourable gentleman, he should follow the public debate on this. We saw major retailers like M&S, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Lidl, all supporting this government's approach in the reset to get an SPS agreement. He should be backing that. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, people will rightly conclude that the right honourable gentleman and his party have learned nothing.
Can I just say to the front bench, we only got to 8 on the first set of questions. It is topics, as I really do want to get all the members in that didn't get in because we were slow earlier. Julie Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister join me in congratulating the 7 schools in my Carlisle constituency that launched breakfast clubs this week? And does the Minister agree with me that breakfast clubs are a fantastic example of this government's plan for change and reform of public services in action?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. I'm pleased to hear about the 7 free new breakfast clubs in Carlisle. And I'm delighted that Brent Knowles School in my constituency also has a new free breakfast club. With our plan for change, we will give children the best start in life, breaking down barriers to opportunity and putting money back in parents' pockets, saving them up to £450 with the rollout of these free breakfast clubs.
Democrat spokesperson Sarah Aldey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Warm words about a reset in UK-EU relations is no longer enough. The summit is taking place in London on the 19th of May is an opportunity for real action. So can the Minister take this opportunity that the summit presents to commit to bringing in a UK-EU youth mobility scheme that will boost economic growth and enhance chances for young people in our country and across the EU?
Mr. Speaker, on the issue of a youth mobility scheme, it's not part of our plans. We've always said we'll listen to sensible EU proposals, but we will not go back to freedom of movement. Where I do agree with her is about concrete proposals and concrete progress on the 19th of May, and we are looking to secure that new partnership with the EU that will make our country safer, more secure and more prosperous.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe that Teesside has enormous potential for AI investment, and so what progress is the government making on AI growth zones, AI adoption and investment for Teesside?
Mr. Speaker, this is a huge opportunity for the UK. The AI Opportunities Action Plan was a statement of our ambition to make the UK a world leader in AI. On AI growth zones, we launched an expression of interest. We've received over 200 responses, and the first of these at Culham, home to the UK Atomic Energy Authority, has already been announced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We've recently found out that portraits and paintings of Elizabeth I, Sir Walter Raleigh and William Shakespeare are amongst 69 pieces of artwork that have been removed from number 10, number 11 and across the government. Does this not make a mockery of the government's St George's Day celebrations this week, as the government is more interested in chasing the latest woke trends than celebrating the history and heritage of this great country?
Mr. Speaker, I have already said that we want a public service that reflects all the great accents that make this country such a great place. We celebrate our history, and I warmly wish the honourable member, a day late I admit, a very happy St George's Day.
Joe Paul.
Mr. Speaker, as we approach the 8th anniversary of Grenfell, there is still no justice for bereaved and survivors, but we do now have a government response to the national inquiry, and Grenfell campaigners have been clear with me that they want to see those promised changes implemented, but they are sceptical given previous failures of the state to learn the lessons from past disasters. Does the Minister agree with me that as part of or alongside the very welcome commitment to a Hillsborough law, there should be a national oversight mechanism to ensure that when inquiries are set up, they lead to meaningful change?
I mean, my honourable friend is a powerful advocate on this, and I think it's incredibly important that the government is held to account for the implementation of inquiry recommendations. It's why the government is already committed to establishing a publicly accessible record of recommendations made by public inquiry since 2024. We will ensure this becomes standard practice in the future, and we are also considering wider reforms of the inquiry's landscape.
Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Press reports earlier this week indicated that negotiations with the EU around security and defence were to be linked to the review of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, in particular in relation to access to fisheries. Can I invite the Paymaster General to confirm to the House that these are not true and there will be no linkage between these two very important negotiations?
Speaker, there is no such link, and I do say to the honourable gentleman that he knows the current arrangements come to an end in 2026. We will be negotiating in the interests of our fishers and indeed with looking at our responsibilities to the marine environment.
Joanna Baxter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's right that this government has ensured there's funding in place to compensate victims of the infected blood scandal, but many of those, particularly in my constituency, are still concerned that the process is taking too long. Can my honourable friend say a little more about what we're doing to speed up getting compensation to those victims?
My honourable friend is a powerful advocate for her constituents. IBCA is, of course, operationally independent, but I stand ready to take all steps that I can to make sure that compensation is made as soon as possible. Payments to the infected started by the end of last year. Payments to the affected will start by the end of this year.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. It's every British citizen's right to vote, and voter turnout is one demonstration of public engagement with politics. So will the Minister consider scrapping photo voter ID so that the 777,000 people who said that was the reason they didn't vote at the last general election will be able to exercise their right to vote at the next general election?
I thank the honourable member for that question. As we set out in our manifesto, the government is committed to encouraging participation in our democracy and believe it's unacceptable when legitimate voters are prevented or discouraged from voting. Whilst we don't have plans to remove the voter ID rules, at these elections in May, the veteran card will be accepted for the first time, and we're conducting a thorough review of the voter ID rules, evaluating how they impacted citizens at the general election.
Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, too many government departments and public bodies have foreign-made tableware purchased with British taxpayers' money. So could I invite the ministerial team to make a commitment to ensure that every government department replaces its foreign-made table set with a British-made, preferably from Stoke-on-Trent?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know the brilliant craftsmanship of Stoke-on-Trent industry. We're committed to supporting British businesses and ensuring they have the best chance of winning public contracts. Our new national policy statement asks contracting authorities to maximise spend with SMEs and support our industrial strategy.
Sir Roger Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the last Parliament, I submitted on behalf of the National Association of Retired Police Officers submission for a medal to be issued in recognition of the service given by those injured on duty and invalided out of the service. That had the backing of the then Police Minister, has, I understand, the backing of the current Police Minister, but has now disappeared into a black hole in the Cabinet Office. Could the Minister please dig it out, dust it off and give it a fair wind?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me say to the honourable member that I will write to him about this issue and find out exactly where we are with it.
Jim Allister.
Thank you. Under the Windsor framework, the government, through the Cabinet Office, regularly supplies data to the European Union about the number and type of checks conducted at the REC border, but refuses to provide that data to members of this House. When I was a member of the Northern Ireland Assembly and the oversight of those checks lay with the local department, I was able to acquire that. But now that it's under DEFRA, members of this House who ask those questions get a refusal of an answer. Why is that?
Mr. Speaker, I'm perfectly happy to look into the matter that the honourable gentleman raises, but I will also say, in relation to the UK-EU reset, I very much hope that if the government is able to secure an SPS agreement, that it will reduce the number of checks on the Irish Sea.
Maria Gold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The 36th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster came and went over recess. Also over recess, we saw rumours in the media that the government is considering watering down its proposed Hillsborough law. Can the Minister explain the government's thinking?
Mr. Speaker, I pay tribute firstly to the Hillsborough families and the campaigners who campaigned over so many years. The government is committed to bringing in a Hillsborough law, but it is also really important that we do work closely with the families to ensure that we get this right, and that is precisely what we will do.
That completes the questions. We'll let the front bench change over.